Welcome to the Beyond Pain podcast with your host, Joe Gambino and Joe LaVacca. Join the two Joes, two physical therapists, as they discuss how to navigate the uncertainties of pain so you can move beyond it and get back to the activities you love most. This podcast is for Joe, and their guests to share their clinical thoughts and ideas based on their collective clinical experiences. Can this information be for you? Maybe, but we cannot know for sure. Therefore, it is always worth talking to your healthcare provider to make the best decisions in your care before you implement anything on this podcast. And please use common sense.
Welcome back into the Beyond Pain podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joe Gambino, and I am here with definitely having a ton of tech issues, Joe LaVacca. Well, welcome back, Joey boy. We just had a 2-week hiatus, and I'll get through the rest of it. If you do want to follow us on social media, you can find us. Joey LaVacca is @strengthandmotion_PT. I am at Joe Gambino DPT. This podcast is on Instagram as well, the Beyond Pain podcast, and on YouTube as well, Cups of Joe_PT. Joe, welcome back in. I know you're having some difficulties today, some struggles, but hopefully the rest of 2025 has been good to you.
Yes, this has been really the only big hiccup. 2025 was off to a really great start. We had 10 days now of data points, enough to say, yes, it was good. I log in today, my camera's not connecting for some reason. It's not a Wi-Fi issue because every other page works. So I am hoping, praying that the rest of the episode goes well. And I think just based off the last 10 days, I have to hold out confidence that it will. So I apologize,
Fingers
Mr.
crossed.
Gambino.
You've already been kicked out of this room once, so, don't apologize to me. You can apologize to the listeners if this doesn't get out on time.
Lord. Good Lord. Well,
yes.
Anyway,
I'm glad we're back.
2
weeks of not seeing you. Yes. Well, as I was trying to tell you before you disappeared from me, we had some visitors to ring in the new year. Some friends surprised us. I was out on date night with Jen. We had babysitter come for the kids. All of a sudden, Jen asked to go home a little bit early. I was like, what the hell is this? I get, outside, we're getting out of the car. I hear a crying baby that doesn't sound like my child. And I'm like walking over to my front door, and there's Fernando and Jamie sitting on the porch waiting for us to get there. Fernando with the drink in hand to give to me. So that was nice. And then we just went up to Boone. Up in the mountains here in North Carolina to get Olivia her first snow experience. So I have to say the initial start, these 10 days have been great so far. How about you, Joe boy?
Yeah, no, also, again, very good. I'm back out in Colorado. I had a good return week back in the clinic. I think it was a little slow to get my brain back online. I think what I had done over those 2 weeks was inverse a lot of my normal habits. So I was taking 2,000 steps a day and eating 10,000 calories. So I don't know if anybody else could relate to that, but that's definitely been the math I've been playing with.
I'm up a pound and a half since the holidays started, so which ain't a bad thing for me. So
yeah, I mean, we could both maybe use a little bit more density. I know I could grow my upper body. Maybe that's going to be my goal for 2025.
Test the arms up to the thighs.
Yeah, become a little bit more of a rectangle rather than an upside down triangle. I think that's sort of what I'm looking forward to. Any goals for yourself for 2025? I think we did a goal episode, but
we did.
I can't remember.
I don't know if we did a goal episode. I know we did a recap.
I think we did helping people with their goals, but I don't know if we talked about maybe ours.
Yeah. I don't remember if we did or not, but in a real quick recap, I would say for me, right now I'm like 168-ish. I weighed this morning. If I can get up to 175 by the end of the year, I think that'll be nice.
Right.
I'm not trying overly hard to put on weight this time, and it's coming, so that's good. I was thinking about this yesterday, actually. It'd be really nice to, 38 now, coming on 40. I have almost 2 years because I'm a November baby. But maybe by the end of the year, hit like 355, 360 on the deadlift, which will be like an absolute PR for me. Just got back to 300 for the first time in quite some time. So, we'll just steady trek, see what happens. And then golf-wise, finally get below a 30 handicap. I'm like right on the cusp, playing a little bit better golf of the last couple rounds that I've played. So if I can finally get there, I think that would make 2025 pretty sweet.
I love that. I
What about
absolutely love
you?
that. Well, funny enough, I was talking to my coach, Mr. Ross, and I actually told him, I'm pretty happy with where I've gotten to with the bench press, where I've gotten to with the squat. And I wanted to join like the 2, 3, 4 club that I made up in my mind. So bench 2 plates, squat 3, deadlift 4. So I currently am up to, I think, 360 or 365 right now. And I was thinking of trying to get to a good 4 plates by the end of the year as well, even if just to pull it one time and just walk away before I turn 40 as well. And yeah, so we got a couple of big things looking up on the horizon there, my friend.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice strength goals there. I think you can do it. Just keep chipping away. I think that's consistency, and I mean, you have a great coach, so I think that will get you there.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears here. I do want to dive in. I got a question of the day for you, Joe. I mean, this is actually something that, as I've been having some conversations on Instagram with people, a theme that I've seen a lot, maybe over the last 2 weeks, I probably had, I don't know, maybe like 10 different occasions where this exact thing came up. So I'm going to pose it to you to see if you can help some of our listeners if they are struggling with this. What would you recommend someone to do if they just didn't know where to start? Whether they've done something before in the past and it hasn't worked, or they're just trying to figure out how to get started. What advice, what tips would you have for someone who's just like, I don't really know what to do at this point moving forward?
Yeah. I think, I'm sure I've been having a lot of the same conversations as well, if not exactly the same, relatively similar. I think what I've been presenting to people at the start of the year is thinking about if it's easier to add one thing or subtract one thing. Because for some people, it might just be removing a barrier or removing a behavior that might kickstart some healthier trends for them into the new year. And then for some people who have some of the basics dialed in, well, what's the next easiest thing for you to add? So one client just was talking with her yesterday, and she mentioned how she got motivated again, chatting with her friend. Her friend, 20 years, some odd years ago, had reached up to about 325 pounds, got gastric bypass surgery, now has been able to, lose 200, keep it off, well into, now her 70s, and she's been pretty active. And that conversation inspired my patient to sort of think about, I don't have 200 pounds to lose, but I definitely think that I can afford to lose a little bit to just improve my quality of life. So we both agreed. And then when we talked about, her just nutrition, I'm not a nutrition coach, but, we went through, I think we both did the precision nutrition thing together, or at least at one point or another. So I like to say we know enough to be a little bit dangerous. And as we're kind of just sitting there, just talking about her regular day, what we both sort of honed in on was this idea of sweets. So it wasn't going to be adding fruit, adding vegetables, making a salad for lunch. That idea to her wasn't really all that kind of like fun or like helpful to deal with. So what we just did, or what we agreed upon, was just like, well, maybe eliminating sweets altogether is not going to be realistic, going from 0 to 100. But what if we made sweets more of a ritual, like something that we celebrate, like you have it on Wednesday and Saturday, or, just one day a week. And now you can, have a cheat night. You still sort of like have this craving satisfied to some degree. And it's actually more special because you're making it like honed in to like one event in particular, right? With some other people, kind of feeling better from some aches and pains that they've been having. I know a lot of people were like, hey, I want to really start getting back into the gym, start strength training like I was. And again, referencing where they were 6 months ago. And they're like, I want to get back to 3 or 4 days a week at the gym. And I'm like, that's great. I appreciate you want to add. Maybe do we think it's more sustainable to just simply go back to the gym twice a week? Let's start with some wins, right? So those are just the two most recent conversations I had over the last couple of days. Of adding was easier for one person because they had little wins already built up. And then sort of subtracting was easier for someone else. But that was sort of a new idea. So I'll need a couple more data points to see if it actually works. Like, do you want to add or subtract? Do you have a preference when working with clients? Do you kind of put, because I've heard both, like it might be easier to remove barriers rather than add things. But I kind of started just offering up, what do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can go either way. I mean, it's always easier to subtract than add. So keeping that in mind, and it just really comes down to what is the person currently dealing with. If there's already like they're trying a lot of things, it's probably easier to subtract and, almost like simplify it to make it easier so they can build a habit. And if they're not really doing anything, then you're probably going to just have to add, unless there's something like significant getting in the way for them to do so. So then it's just starting with the small change. And what I love about precision nutrition is just like, really, you're just trying to when I'm working with people on like a nutrition thing, it's like, let's make one little habit change. So let's find out what's the lowest hanging fruit that we can start with. And we're just going to start with it for maybe like one day of the week. And when you can do that consistently, then it's 2 days, then 3 days, then 4 days. And I'm working with a friend of mine, and she's been struggling with some consistency. And we've literally just like stopped everything. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to put habits in True Coach. And all you're going to do is either go into the gym, you're either going to get on your Peloton, you're either going to go for a walk, or you're just going to do some mobility work, and you're just going to mark it as done. And that's it. Doesn't matter how much. And she's crushing that. Like, that's it. So sometimes you just need to, that's almost like a subtraction, but also adding as well, which is just do anything. And let's get that habit for 30 days and then move on from here.
Right. No, I love that habit box on True Coach. And I think it's made a really big difference for a lot of people. I've been just doing like, hey, drink your body weight in water, like, go for a micro walk for 5 minutes. You don't even have to actually mark how long it was. Just mark that you got it done, just so you can start to see this momentum, these green checks, for anyone who has used True Coach, whenever you complete something or do something, you get a trophy, there's a celebration, there's confetti, all those like kind of wonderful things that give you a little, nice little dopamine hit. So if you can kind of keep building that up, I love that idea. And consistency, like I said, I think consistency means something different for everyone now. And I've tried to be a little bit less stringent, again, even entering the new year, where I want to make sure people feel free to move days around in True Coach if they need to. So if you did hit two walks last week, or if you did hit 2 strength, getting in 2 days again this week, right? Don't worry about another day. Don't worry about if it was Monday or Wednesday or anything like that. Just simply keep consistent with 2. And that could be Monday, and that could be Friday, or the next week it could be Tuesday, and it could be Wednesday, right? But just building up those consistent days, I think, has been a more positive message than I was used to delivering, because it was always like very structured. I think people shied away from too much structure. So I'm even just trying to be a little bit more flexible going into the new year.
No, I love that. And then I think just one more turning point for people listening, and this is kind of where I've kind of been telling some people, is like, literally just like, if you're not sure where to go and you're not looking to, necessarily hire somebody or have a conversation with someone to point you in the direction, do something, make sure you give it enough runway. So like, pick something to do, whether it's something you found on YouTube or, I don't know, some old stuff that you've done. Do it for 2, 3, 4 weeks. No changes. That's okay, right? Because you just tested something out, and then move on to something else. But you have to give it some time to see if it actually works. And then the other thing I always tell, this is like with my clients, like if you find anything that, even if it's short term, helps you just a little bit, like 1 or 2 movements, you're probably going to want to double, triple down on it, because like if you do a lot more of it, it's going to help calm down the system. So if you've been struggling with pain, not really sure where to go, or even with fitness and not really sure what to do, just do something, give it a little bit of runway, see how it goes. You can always make changes in the future if things aren't going exactly how you want. All right. Well, let's shift gears here. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode. Our topic of today is, are you sleeping wrong? I think this is something I hear from a lot of people. I woke up in pain and it has to be because I slept wrong. So let's, maybe we'll, let's start here, Joe. Do you think that this is myth or truth?
My thing that I've always had over the last, I think 15 years now of doing this, it's myth. I mean, sleep is sleep. I don't care what position you do it in. I don't care if you're upside down. The thing I care about is that you are, go back to the word we were just saying, consistent with your sleep habits and consistent with your sleep schedule. And the reason really kind of why I started to think about that was, throughout the course of humankind history, we did not have beds and pillows and everything else. So we were either sleeping in trees, we were sleeping on dirt. When I wrote a blog way, way back for Perfect Stride, right? It was actually a blog about pillows. And pillows weren't even invented until like the Roman Empire came around. And even then they were like this sign of like status or wealth. So you and I probably didn't have pillows back in the Roman Empire days. We were going home and laying on some straw. And that was about it, and this lap of luxury or these foam tops and this and the curvature for your head so it keeps your spine in alignment. I'm like, well, what the hell were we doing when we were sleeping on stone? What the hell were we doing when we were sleeping in dirt or sleeping up on trees in weird angles to just like escape predators at night? So if we are sleeping wrong, being completely horizontal, and I've heard my clients say, oh, I shouldn't sleep on my side, I shouldn't sleep on my stomach. And I always just say, why? And they, they'll blurt out an answer. Oh, it's bad for my neck because it keeps me in this position. Oh, it's bad for this, it's bad for that. And I'm like, great, well, who taught you that? And, and then the blank stare happens. I think I just know, like, isn't that just common knowledge? And it's like, well, we have to come back to how you know that. Where do you know that from? Who taught you? Where did they find out the information from? Because I haven't seen anything on sleep posture. I don't even know how you would study this, because once you're asleep, how you and I control moving our bodies, I mean, unless you were going to cocoon us, I don't know how you would even just kind of come up with these ideas or scenarios. So I'll stop. I think it's myth. What say you, Mr. Gambino?
Man, when you started talking about this, the first thing I thought about was that Perfect Shot blog that you wrote a million years ago. So you're still talking about it, Joe. You're still talking about it.
I didn't think about that blog until I just started talking about it right now.
As far as where I am with it, I also view it as a myth. I think when, again, you mentioned it, right? We move so much during sleep. It doesn't matter, I don't like laying on my stomach because it hurts. So I start on my back. You may end up on your stomach, and that might be one reason why you wake up in pain in the morning. The way I look at it is this similar. We talked about posture. It's not really the postures, right, that are wrong or causing your pain. It's the repetitive strain of something. So if you have an injury or you've had pain for a while and it became so sensitive that sleeping in a position or just being maybe a lot of people who struggle with pain is because whenever they're not moving, pain comes up. They've been sitting for too long, they lay for too long. Inactivity is what drives their pain, or maybe certain positions that do it. So in those cases, it's more of the repetitive strain of being in your bed for X amount of time that's really driving pain when you're getting up. So less about the positions, less about how you sleep, and more about how your body just tolerates the demands of it. And sometimes maybe a softer bed can do the trick. I mean, like I know I've had pain waking up in the morning. A mattress topper was a short-term solution for me. Then at some point, a firmer mattress was a solution for me. I think sometimes novel stimulus, right, or something that's going to change the forces on your body when you're sleeping can improve how you sleep, but it's not anything that I would ever recommend to somebody because it's like you're just like throwing something at the wall and hoping that it sticks. But you could try something like that in the short term, and then working on the things that are going to help get your body moving better, feeling better, where if being inactive is something that drives pain, how can we start to reduce that and improve that? And as that stuff gets better, sleep should also get better. But usually what I tell people is that's the last thing that comes when you're going through a rehab process to reduce pain. First, we're going to see these little transient changes in pain. We're going to start to build up tissue resilience after that. And then at some point, hopefully, morning stiffness, morning pain should start to improve, but that's going to be a little bit down the road. And you just use strategies. Most people say, hey, when I start moving, I feel better. So your strategy at that point, I think, would be how do you start to, what kind of routines can you have in the morning to get yourself back on track as quick as possible? And then, go through your day, and then, you have to do it again when you're sleeping at night. But I don't know. I rambled in a lot of different directions there. So hopefully that makes sense.
No, I think it did. And I think, just coming back to the actual topic, the question, like, are you sleeping wrong? No. If your eyes are closed and you're able to go through REM sleep, non-REM sleep, hopefully getting anywhere between 6 to 8 hours, right? Maybe that's, sort of individual, right? Based on some of the things I've read. A lot of people push 7, a lot of people push 8, a lot of people seem to be pushing a range. I read a research article this week that actually talked about your schedule, and the consistency of your schedule might be even more important as a sleep factor for overall mortality than making sure you're getting 7 or 8 or whatever every night. And it's some nights I go to bed at midnight, but then I wake up at 8. Other days I go to bed at 10 and I wake up at 5. So I sort of thought about my schedule. Even when I'm out here in Colorado, I realized that I'm sort of into that same loop. Like I'm always going to bed around 10:30, 11, and I'm waking up at anywhere probably between 5:45 and 6:15, right? So either West Coast, East Coast, I don't change my sleep habits. Whatever the clock says, it's like, that's kind of when I fall asleep. But again, a lot of clients are, I work late on Tuesdays, or, hey, there's these like long stretches of time with the kids, and these things happen. But when you're able to figure out what's the best time for you to go to sleep, just stick with that, right? If it's 10 or 10:30, like have a rule where it's lights out. I'm going to try to fall asleep. And if you can't, after 20 or 30 minutes, then, maybe pop up, maybe start reading some form of like maybe light activity around the house. Like, oh, I didn't clean this, I didn't clean that. Okay, go do that. Don't start putting on lights, look at your cell phone, play video games, do something that's super, super stimulating, because then that's going to alter your rhythm just a little bit. So I care when I talk to patients about this, not the positions they're sleeping in. What are their habits leading up to sleep? Because I do think those habits could be, let's say, opportunistic or worth improving. And what is your sleep schedule? And do you follow the same thing? Because I know a lot of people, like, let's just label my daughter here. Avery likes to stay up late when it's not a school night, or try to. And then she sleeps in on the weekends like a lot of kids do. And I know a lot of adults that do that too. Hey, I don't have work tomorrow, so I can binge watch Squid Game. I can watch this movie. I can sleep in till 9, 10 o'clock because I'm trying to catch up on sleep. And I always tell them that's probably way more disruptive than if you just took your same 6 or 7 hours. Don't shoot for 10, 11, 12 on the weekend. Just stay consistent. What are your thoughts on sleep schedule or habits? Is that something that comes up a lot for you with clients?
Yes. If someone's like, I don't really do a whole lot of like sleep coaching with people. Maybe I should, I have some resources that, I was just thinking about the book Why We Sleep that we read at Perfect Stride for our little book club, which was an excellent book. And I recommend it to anyone listening if you want to learn about what kind of things help you get better sleep. I love that this is where the conversation went, because I think it is important. Quality sleep is just as important as anything else for mortality, for our brain function, for just about everything that we do, right? For recovery, pain. So I think if you can improve the quality of your sleep, it's low-hanging fruit that can really make a difference to someone's quality of life. So, and then just, I'll just, I don't really know if I have anything else to add on top of that. I think having a consistent schedule, same thing, lights, using blue light glasses maybe or something like that before bed, or turning off devices, 30 minutes before you're falling asleep to help kind of like deregulate a little bit to be able to help yourself sleep better. But just kind of going back to the point, like, I definitely don't think there's a wrong way to sleep, but if something's painful, you're going to probably want to try to, I would say, like, avoid it so you're not irritating things. I know for me personally, laying on my stomach usually will just cause a problem. I can lay on my stomach way longer than I used to, but if I was to sleep on my stomach, I would definitely wake up with a creaky back. So I just don't. I don't really think I find myself ever waking up where I've rolled onto my stomach. Maybe I do. I can't say that, but I either fall asleep on my side or my back, and then I just let the night take me wherever it takes me from there.
Yeah. One of my last thoughts also, just because you brought up pain, is that when you're in pain and there's active inflammation or active healing going on in an area, it can definitely give you that perception of, I'm sleeping wrong, or I can't sleep on this side. And I think that is 100% temporary. I think you can find a position of tolerance if you want to. But I've had plenty of people over the course of the last several years tell me, yeah, you know what, my shoulder always bothered me when I laid on my right side, so now I sleep on my left. And I'm wondering if, like, oh, this can, if my neck pain now or my back pain now is contributing to that. And I tell them, absolutely not. As long as you're sleeping, you picked a different position, I'm totally fine with that. I happen to be a little bit more of like a 3/4. So I'll go and take a pillow. And as same as you, like, I liked sleeping on my stomach for most of my life. And then I would realize, yeah, like, occasionally I'd wake up and be like, stiff and achy, and it would go away. But I'm like, do I really want to start my day feeling stiff or achy? Is that the first thing I want to feel? So all I did was start propping just like a pillow underneath whatever side I'm kind of on. And that was just enough to keep me quarter turn. And now I'm totally fine. Now I would say, being an Italian, which is basically like a heat engine at night, it definitely gets harder when you're sleeping with someone versus sleeping by yourself. But to me, I think the biggest thing I always try to tell people, and that's a bias, is, hey, just make sure your room is as cool as possible. We don't want it to be 70, 72 degrees. The thing that always helps me sleep better is when my room is cold. And we want to have that drop in tissue temperature at night, which happens anyway. It's part of your rhythm. So anything that's going to drive up your temperature at night could then also trigger a sympathetic response. That also might be connected to pain. So whatever we can do to keep things relaxed, keep it down, that might help you if you're sleeping in pain. It doesn't make those 2 weeks really pleasurable. There might not be any position that works for you. I know it sucks. I'm sorry. It will pass. And then we'll learn from it, or you'll figure out some other adaptive position. But I don't think any posture with sleeping is correlated with any sort of pain. If one position used to work for you and now it doesn't, that's okay. It's not going to predispose you to anything else down the line. And I think from what I'm hearing, you agree.
I think to your point, I think if I remember correctly, someone will have to fact check this, but I think Why We Sleep, the book said the room should be 67 degrees. So definitely on the cooler side, help you sleep, things like that. So keep that in mind. And I guess as a quick recap before you can take us home, Joey Boy, is sleep quality matters. I think if you're feeling groggy, tired, you have pain, and you're sleeping, it's just an issue for you, trying to find ways to be consistent or try to find little tips on how to sleep better, have better quality of sleep can go a long way for feeling better, cognitive function, a whole lot of things. And then if you do have pain, there's nothing, you can't sleep wrong, right? There's no positions that are wrong. But pain, the way I like to think about it is pain changes things. When you have pain and now a position becomes painful, then it's okay to then avoid it. But we're not going to blame the position for why you have pain. We can blame the pain for why you can't be in those positions in a sense. So almost, I think if we reframe it, and I think the reason why it's important is because we don't want to demonize positions, because when you feel better, right, you don't want to be like, oh, well, now that I feel better, I can't do X, Y, or Z because my pain's going to come back. That's not like a true correlation. If you've done that good enough rehab and you're feeling good, laying on your stomach likely, again, won't cause pain, right? But if your pain starts to come back, then sleeping on your stomach might become painful again. And trying not to make this like cause and effect relationship, I think, is important, because once we start demonizing positions like squatting or deadlifting or sitting or whatever it is, then it becomes fearful. Then we try to avoid it, and those positions become even harder for you to tolerate. And then it's like this little vicious cycle. So if we could reframe it, work on the things that we need to work on, all those other things should kind of fall into place. You get out of pain, you can go back to doing those things, and that's it.
There we go. I couldn't have said it better. I very like your summary there, my friend. So I don't have anything else to contribute. Maybe we can do a sleeping habits episode as a follow-up, just to give people a couple more tangible things to work on. Because I know there is a list that we can give people of maybe 5 to 10 habits. We already touched on a couple of them, but then that way it's a resource, and I think that would serve as a good follow-up.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be our next episode, or in a future episode if anyone's interested in diving into that topic a little bit more. But any closing other thoughts or remarks, Mr. Gambino?
I do not have any. You can take us home.
All right. Well, everyone, it was good to be back. Joe, I love you. Happy 2025. Looking forward to this year. Listeners, we love you. Thank you for following along with us on this journey, and there's lots more to come. And be sure to tune in for another episode of the Beyond Pain podcast next week.